What's up, everybody? First of all, we want to thank you guys for coming. Our first Bullpen Mafia live event. Eric and I are thrilled to be in front of so many family and friends, some late arriving, some on time. We appreciate you guys. We're thrilled to be here. It's our first year of Bullpen Mafia, and we honestly could not thank you guys. This would not be possible without you guys.
We have a long list of thank yous, Javi, starting with our executive producer, Paul Garcia. Magic City Sounds, if it's not for Magic City Sounds, Bullpen Mafia is not existing. Redefined Productions, our amazing AV staff. Tank Brewing. What do you think, man? A year and a half into this, we've gone from a tiny studio in someone's closet in Little Havana to Paul's music studio where Jon Jay has famously dropped the bars to now here at Tank Brewing in front of a live audience, in front of our family and our friends. This is basically a Mafia cast. We got the World Series going on behind us. Could you believe that we've made it here in, 15 months?
We're really lucky, and again, it's not possible without you guys. Toad said all the thank yous. We can't thank these guys enough. Honestly, without Paul's help, we would not be here. Paul redefined what we thought about production, how we thought about being a professional organization, and it was really eye-opening for us. But what better day to get together than Game 1 of the World Series, dude? I mean, for me as a kid, this was a national holiday. It was drop whatever you're doing, make sure that you are in front of the television, and that's really the reason why we're here. We got two great teams, but before we do the World Series watch party, we thought we wanted to get together with some Miami legends. We got Abel Sanchez of Miami Stadium. Needs no introduction. Kelly Saco of the Miami Marlins and the Miami Heat. And, of course, 305 Zone, Jon Jay, the only World Series champion in this room here tonight.
No, whoa. Juan Martinez.
That's true.
Juan Martinez of the Miami Marlins is here.
True.
He's got a ring.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
Have some respect, Javier, please.
Honestly, we wanted to bring together three different people with three unique perspectives on not only what this city brings, but can give us real insight into what a World Series actually looks like. And
Vayeta break.
He said we needed one. Thank you to Stefano and Tank. This is obviously the most important part of the evening. We got so much to cover, Toad. I think
a lot to cover in a little amount of time because I know folks want to get into the game. We want our guests to hop up here as soon as possible. Let's recap the two teams who are playing in this game, right? We have the juggernaut that is the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Somehow I found myself wearing a Dodger. I'm not rooting for the Dodgers particularly, but I had this in my closet. I figured, why not wear it? This is the only time I'm going to wear a Dodger shirt.
The juggernaut LA Dodgers against the widely considered underdog Toronto Blue Jays, but by no means they've spent a fair amount of money themselves. How do you see this series going? You're a pitcher. Give us a perspective of the pitching matchups going into tonight. We got Blake Snell, who's been absolutely dominant in the playoffs.
We got Blake Snell and Trey Savage, right? So it's two totally opposite sides of the spectrum. I think the coolest part of today's game is Trey Savage was pitching in single A this year. He started the season in single A, is now starting Game 1 of the World Series. So you have a guy whose his whole career has been defined by his route to the big leagues this year, and Blake Snell, who obviously his career is, Cy Young winner, one of the best pitchers in the game, has had a tremendous postseason. I think we're in for a treat. And look, I think the Dodgers obviously are the juggernaut. They are the pronounced favorite. Everybody is picking the Dodgers, and I think that gives the Blue Jays the biggest advantage, right? I think being the underdog, they have the entire country of Canada behind them. They've had a tremendous run to the postseason.
And I think every state outside of Los Angeles counts.
Yes. I think everyone has Dodgers fatigue, but look, it's no fault of their own, right? They've built this the right way. They have the best player in baseball in Shohei Ohtani. They have four of the best players in baseball, right? You can name it, pick any one of them, and it's just incredible what they've built. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens.
There's one guy you specifically mentioned that I want to get into, Trey Savage. You mentioned he has skyrocketed from single A all the way to starting in the regular season to the ALDS, ALCS, and now starting Game 1 of the World Series. Every game he starts, it's the next biggest game of his career.
Yeah.
You've pitched at every level imagined
except the big leagues.
You've pitched at every level imaginable in Miami-Dade County. You're a star at Columbus. You pitch at University of Miami. You throw a perfect game. You throw in the minors for the Brewers. Walk us through your biggest start, some of the more nerve-wracking moments that you've picked up the ball and taken the mound.
Yeah, I was always nervous. I mean, that's just the way I operated. I was an overthinker by nature, and I think especially at this stage, I'm sure Savage is having a ton of butterflies. He's pitching at home, game one of the World Series. I mentioned his rise to the majors this year, and to think that you went from single A to the World Series in one season, like it's got to be a full range of emotions for him. But at the end of the day, he's got the stuff, and I think that's what you always lean back on. You lean back on your preparation. You lean back on the fact that you're comfortable, you're playing a game, and the more you can normalize those feelings and accept them, I think that's how you kind of embrace these moments. And for me personally, I never pitched in a game of this magnitude, but it was always about normalizing my nerves, accepting them, and using them to my advantage. I think that's what he's going to do here tonight.
Another pitcher I want to touch on before we invite up our first guest here, Max Scherzer, 40 years old, a World Series champion with the Nationals, a bulldog on the mound, right? He loves taking the ball. He's going to fight for every inning, every pitch that he's up there. In the ALCS, he went viral for arguing, I guess you could call it, strongly.
Telling his manager to take a hike.
Yeah, politely telling John Schneider to take a hike, go back into the dugout. I want to finish this inning. Did you have any moments like that with JD Arteaga, or any moment in your career where you confidently told your manager, your pitching coach, I got this?
I don't know if I ever had the ability to say that on the mound. I think you earned that, right? I think Scherzer's earned that. He didn't pitch in any round in the postseason until that moment. That was his first start. He was finally getting back onto the mound, something that he's definitely earned. He's a World Series champ. He's a Cy Young winner. It was a great moment. I thought that gave the Blue Jays so much confidence. Imagine that mound meeting where he just yells at the manager's face, tells him to turn around, and the manager doesn't even say another word. He obliges. He gets out of the inning. I thought it was a huge lift. I thought it was a tremendous moment for the Blue Jays. And again, Scherzer is going to be one of those wild cards, right? The Dodgers have a huge advantage with starting pitching. What are the Blue Jays going to get out of Max Scherzer? I think that's a huge opportunity for them. Can he give them the same type of start that he gave in the ALCS? We'll see.
All right. We've gone over the pitching. You've touched on the hitting. Let's skip ahead. Who's winning the World Series and in how many games?
I have the Dodgers winning the World Series, unfortunately, in 6 games.
Okay. 6 games, because it's 2-3-2, right? We're doing 2 in Toronto,
2-3-2,
3 in LA, and then potentially back to Toronto for 2 more.
Exactly.
I'm going to take the other way. I think the home field advantage in Rogers Center has been electric the entire postseason. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr., someone we haven't spoken about at all so far in our few minutes up here. And I even saw Paul, our producer, is repping Vladdy
the
Sr.
coolest
tonight.
jersey here.
Paul Garcia is definitely the best dressed person here tonight. So with all that being said, I'm going to counter you. I'm going to go Blue Jays in 7.
7.
Let's take it 7. Let's go all the way.
Let's do it. I'm excited. I think we've built it up enough. There's nothing else that needs to be said. I think it leads in perfectly into our next guest. Our first guest, who probably needs no introduction. I'd take, if we had a guest and you took out your phones, I think 90% of the people in here probably follow him on Instagram, watch his videos nostalgically, and think to themselves that maybe we were living in a better time a couple decades ago. But we're going to bring up Abel Sanchez of the famous Miami Stadium. Abel, come on up here, man.
What's up, brother? Oh, got my phone. It's on. It's on.
This thing is on.
First off, thank you. Thank you for coming. Let's give up another round of applause for Abel Sanchez, Miami Stadium. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is, I could confidently say, I think out of the 3 of us, I have the least amount of Instagram followers. I think, without a doubt.
We're way behind, dude. We're way behind.
The saying goes, the cliche is people go 0 to 100, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Somehow you've gone 0 to 100K.
Yes.
Talk to us a little about Miami Stadium, how you came up with the account, the organic growth you've come from it. Nostalgia is a big thing for us, millennials.
Yeah.
The city of Miami, it seems to play well, but you tell us your story.
You know, like most things in life, it just happens spontaneously. You know, I was looking for a Miami Stadium page back in the day in 2016. I didn't find it. So in a way, I just kind of created the page that I wanted to see. You know, and I took all this content that I already had on my computer and started sharing it through that.
So it was organic, completely organic. But now you've gotten to a point where people look forward to your content. I think I do. I definitely do. I want to see what's Miami Stadium going to post next. What's that content creation process for you? How do you find the clips? I mean, walk us through A to Z.
In a way, it's interesting. My page has kind of become my own resource. So I can go back and I have a lot of stuff saved and I have certain dates, but then I can also improvise as well. And it started as a baseball page, based off the historic Miami Stadium in Alapata. And that I used to go to when I was a JIT back in the 80s. I used to sneak in there. It became, little by little, it started like spreading into history and culture, which is really what the page is about. I always say Miami Stadium is where history and culture collide. So from Orange Bowl to South Beach and everything in between.
You touched on your relationship with baseball. How big of a Marlins fan are you? I see you at all the games. You're posting about the fish. What has the organization meant to you from 93 all the way to today?
Man, back then, growing up as a JIT, the only major leaguers we saw was during spring training at Miami Stadium. So those were the first big leaguers I saw. And you'd always hear rumblings, one day we're going to have a team, one day we're going to have MLB. And it finally happened in 93, and it was like a miracle. So you got to go home team. I was attached to the Orioles because that was the team that trained at Miami Stadium. So Ripken and Murray and all those guys. Once the Marlins started, home team all day.
Mentioned Miami Stadium, right? And I think the Miami Stadium, that was your first professional team, first professional experience, the Orioles.
Yes.
So many of, I know my uncle's here. My uncle was a huge Cal Ripken fan just because the Orioles were in town, right? That was the only game in town.
Yeah.
So until the Marlins got here, so many Miamians, Floridians are Orioles fans just because that's their first taste of baseball.
100%. And the Ripkens, for me, those are like father figures growing up around Cal Sr., Cal Jr., and his brother, and a very class organization. So I was very lucky that was my introduction to Major League Baseball was with the Baltimore Orioles.
Abel, take us back to when the Marlins first got to Miami. The organization starts up. How did they get embraced from the community? I think that's one of the things that Eric and I always talk about is building the baseball community. The Marlins at first, they're the first professional baseball team down here. How quickly did they ingrain themselves into the South Florida society?
And for a lot of kids, especially our age, the Marlins are our favorite team of all time. It was our first taste of winning baseball. It's the first championship we got to experience.
It was something that it felt like it was embraced immediately, and we knew we were going to struggle because you're a new team. But I think the colors that you're wearing had a lot to do with it. The teal and black, which for a lot of people, I think are still the favorite colorway, and that logo, the original Fighting Fish. So it feels like when that was born in 93 and Uncle Wayne, who owned, the Marlins and Wayne's World, who owned the Marlins and the Dolphins and brought us the Panthers. So all this amazing stuff happened around the same time, 93, 94, and everybody just kind of jumped on. And 5 years later, we're in the World Series.
Which again was tremendous, right? Like Eric mentioned, that those were our favorite teams growing up. A lot of kids my generation, we still hang on to 97 and 03 for dear life, right? Because we've seen other championships, but nothing quite like those.
No, that was amazing.
And we want to take you back to 97. We asked Tommy Hutton this question. Tommy was part of the 97 and 03 teams. If the 97 Marlins played the 2003 Marlins at full strength, who wins that game?
That's a tough question. You're killing me with that one. Two fantastic squads. Both wild cards. Both won 90 games. Two great skippers, Leland McKeon. Man, you know what? I might lean towards 97.
That's just bias.
I might lean towards the first one.
We're the same way. I will die for the 2003 Florida Marlins.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. That team 03 with Pudge and obviously a Gran Combo up the middle and JP alone. That's a hell of a squad right there.
It's something that we can only hope comes back soon, and I think we're heading in the right direction, right? There's so much appetite for baseball down here, Abel.
Absolutely.
One of the big things that we love as fans of baseball is the World Baseball Classic, right? I think that's the next big thing here in South Florida for us. In terms of culture, is that something that you see that when you go to that stadium, when you go to Lone Depot Park and you see Venezuela against Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, these are huge fan bases. It's so refreshing to see.
I said there's blood involved.
Yeah.
When it's countries, in a way, that's the real World Series. When you think about it, because you're talking, countries. I've been going to it for a few years. I worked one with the Marlins in 2017. I went to the last one, USA, Japan, and I was there in 17 when the U.S. won. It's the most incredible vibe at Lone Depot Park. It's incredible. It's a lot of fun.
Underrated venue.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Architecturally, that roof alone is a work of art. And I like the 360-degree concourse. So you can roam and you never miss the action.
You never miss anything. That's the best part about going to a stadium like that.
Yeah.
It looks like Dodger Stadium. Dodger Stadium, you can walk at any part of the park and you can walk. You can look. I'm
Exactly.
serious. I'm serious.
You're just
The
saying
open
that as a
concourse,
Dodgers fan.
I'm a
man.
Dodgers fan.
Oh, yeah, he's got that.
Abel, we're going to get you out on this one. Who do you got in the World Series and in how many games?
I mean, obviously, two great teams. Everyone's leaning towards LA, right? That's the obvious choice. Defending champion, Ohtani, et cetera, et cetera. The money says Dodgers in 6. I'm going Blue Jays in 7 because why
there
not?
There you go. 2-on-1.
Because why
Count-
not?
count
You
two for the
know,
good guys.
I think they're a great squad. They can hit, great hitting, great pitching. Usually great pitching and defense beats great hitting. But why not? Jays in 7.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Abel, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Abel.
Oh,
If you
thank
don't
you,
follow
guys.
Abel Sanchez on Instagram at Miami Stadium, he has the best local content you can find in this city.
Come on. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. My man.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Come on, bro.
Next up, another South Florida legend in her own right, the Miami Marlins sideline reporter, radio, play-by-play voice, the one and only Kelly Saco, everybody. Thank you.
What's up, boys? How we doing?
Kelly's got the coolest fit. Rivaling Paul. I said
I
Paul
do
had
have
the
a
coolest
cool
fit.
fit, huh?
It is, the best fits here are top 2, Paul or Kelly. That might be our mini mic segment later. Who's got the best drip of the night? Paul with the Expos jersey or Kelly with the throwback Marlins jacket? Kelly, we're very excited to have you up here because Javi and I were lifelong Marlins fans. We've been watching you on TV for what feels like a decade already.
Don't age me, boys.
Fair
Relax.
enough. Fair enough. But before we get into the Marlins, we wanted to talk about your journey as a woman in sports. You earned your stripes the hard way. When we first talked to you about a month or two ago on the sidelines at the Marlins game, you told us a hilarious story at a Heat game that your first job in sports was actually being a cable runner at the AAA for the Miami Heat.
Yes, a utility. So I got my start behind the scenes. So right out of college, I got hired with our regional network, which was then Fox Sports Florida, which became Bally Sports, which became FanDuel Sports Network, which is what it is now. But back then when I started, back in my day, it was Fox Sports Florida, and I got hired as a production assistant. And as a production assistant, you're basically going to do whatever they tell you. And my first job was a utility with the Miami Heat. So it was for that last championship season. So it was a great time to be there. But my job was to coil the camera wires as the camera guy who sits under the basket during timeouts when he gets up and he sprints onto the court. It was my job to make sure that those cables stayed in order. And being a little bit of the cocky athlete that I was coming straight out of college, I was like, oh, I got this. It's going to be easy. No big deal. They're teaching me how to coil on like this little flimsy orange wire, which is very different than the actual camera cable that you get in the game. And I remember my first time I'm sitting under the basket and my camera guy's there and there's a timeout and he pops up and he shoots onto the court, racing over there. And I drop all the camera cables. I drop them on the court, sold out crowd, and I'm just picking them up and I'm running frantically behind him, just trying to keep up. But yeah, so that was my first job in sports. And just little by little, I knew what I wanted to do. And I did everything that I could behind the scenes to learn from the people who were doing it. So it was Craig Minervini. It was Frank Fort at the time. You probably remember him. Yeah. So just trying to learn from them and recording my own stand-ups. And little by little, I started making my way up.
I think that's an underrated part of working in sports. You and I both, we've been in this industry for a long time. Anytime a kid asks me, how do I get into it? How did you get to the Marlins? How did you work for the Dolphins? I'm like, it's because I was willing to wash University of Miami football players' underwears when I was in grad school. You have to be willing to do anything just to get your foot in the door and prove to any department like, hey, I belong. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. You're with the Marlins now. It was a historic season in its own right. The Marlins this season, youngest team in all of baseball. Expectations were arguably at an all-time low, right? Not a lot of characters that the fan base was familiar with. But all of a sudden, they win 12 games in a row at one point, something like a team record 9 games on the road at one point. You're arguably the closest to the team, right? You're interviewing the players post-game. You're speaking with Clayton McCullough pre-game. What's the biggest difference between the 2025 Marlins and the 2024-2023 Marlins?
Well, first and foremost, it was a completely different team. So in a lot of rights, it's unfair to compare it because they're different guys. They're at different parts in the career. And every season is so unique in its own right. It's really, I think, unfair to compare. But this group, speaking about the 2025 Marlins in particular, this was a group of young guys who exceeded expectations, as you mentioned. But this was a group who, from day one, just worked very hard, and they didn't care what anyone thought about them. They knew the outside noise, but they didn't listen to it. They took that underdog mentality, and they rose above it. And I think that one of the most exciting parts about this season was watching the way that this team fought together. Every single night, it was a new hero. It wasn't the same guy leading the charge day in and day out. It really was a group who they're one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball for the majority of the season.
The youngest.
For the majority of the season, there towards the end when people got called up, I think a couple of teams became younger than them, but the youngest team for the majority of the season. And that being said, this was a group of rookies that learned together, that grew together, learned how to fight together. So they're all going through a lot of the same things. It kind of reminds me of when you're in college or you're in high school and you're a freshman and you're trying to figure out where your locker is and where your classes are and what to do and where to sit. They're all going through all those struggles, all the ups and the downs together. And it was a group that really just got along, and it was so much fun to watch them do it.
I think for me as a fan and an outsider, one of the things that caught my attention was the chemistry, right? You just touched on it. It looked like a group that really got along, that loved each other for the most part, and pushed each other through the toughest parts of the season. They didn't start off well. They fell behind. All of a sudden, they make this incredible push where they get to the trade deadline and they had some big decisions to make, and the team held pat. And it seemed like that gave wind in the sails for the Marlins, right? I think it was something that the organization, the players in that room realized, like, we have a really good nucleus here. We can build around this, and we have a real chance to make the playoffs, which, look, for better or for worse, with a week left in the season, they were still playing meaningful baseball, which is incredible for that group, such a young group. What does Clayton McCullough's influence have on that young group? Because obviously, Clayton's been in the Dodgers organization. There's all these ties back. They've been in the World Series back-to-back years. But he seemed like a guy who just brought that group together and just really stabilized them through the most difficult parts of the season.
Yeah, you always have to give the coaching staff credit when it comes to chemistry because it starts at the top. And when I talk to a lot of the guys of the chemistry that was built, it really all starts in spring training. The coaching staff and the Marlins organization, the front office, they had an approach in spring training where they said, hey, listen, we're going to make practice hard so the game maybe becomes a little bit easier to you. And that's what they did. So these guys were really putting in a lot of work since day one. And those days in spring training, they are grueling, they are long. So I think that going through all of that together brought them together very, very early on. So again, just what they were able to go through and fight through and work through together ended up paying off during the season.
Javi and I like to allude to this Marlins team to the 2001-2002 Marlins, where to your point, where it's like high school, where you're growing together, learning together. Imagine this team in a couple of years, they're building through the middle. You have a young catcher in Agustin Ramirez who admittedly himself has said he's got a lot to learn on the defensive side. But you have Marcy, you have Otto Lopez, Xavier Edwards. They're built strong up the middle. And we like to say, buy your stock in the Marlins now. Because in 2001, 2002, when no one was thinking about the Marlins being contenders in 2003, that's when we were falling in love with them, with Alex Gonzalez, Luis Castillo. That's when you're getting to know them. The 2025 Marlins, I think, are hitting their stride in that same strain, and that the fan base is starting to learn their names, learn their personalities, and the momentum is building. Well, we like to say making waves, right?
Exactly. He knows the marketing of it. You know the hashtag. No, but you make a very good point. And during this season, they first started the Marlins Legends Hall of Fame. So we had the chance to see a lot of those Marlins legends come through the ballpark, and Jack McKeon being one of them. And Jack McKeon said, this team reminds me a lot of the 2003 Marlins. And that, I think, is one of the highest compliments that you could have, because it was a bunch of guys that no one really knew. It was a bunch of really young guys in the beginning of their career, but there were a bunch of guys who are very hungry. It was a bunch of guys who are willing to who were trying to prove people wrong. And it was also a bunch of guys who were fighting down to the very last out. And that was what was so exciting about this team. This was a team who won 78 games, 79 games, 79 and 84, right? So 17 games better than the year before that. They were 16 games below 500 on June 7th. After that, June 13th, they won an incredible run. So this is a team who they have a lot to learn. They still have a lot to learn. There's still a lot of ways and a lot of room to grow, but there was a lot that was learned. There was a great base for them to build off of. So per your point, a bunch of young guys who learned a lot and can see what they can do when they do so together.
Kelly, you mentioned close games, exciting games. You have a front row seat to those walk-off wins.
I do. It's
We
great.
have to
I'm
ask
spoiled.
you, what's more difficult as a sideline reporter, dodging the Gatorade bath or going the translation to Spanish and English, which you do a great job of?
I will. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret this year. This year, my director was telling me, hey, watch out, the Gatorade's coming.
That's not fair. You shouldn't have told us
I had
that.
eyes in the back of my head this year, so I did. I had some people helping me. In years past, definitely not the case. But yes, honestly, both difficult but fun in the best of ways, best of ways, honestly. I love that I'm able to communicate with these guys in 2 languages and whatever makes them feel comfortable. And I love that I'm part of these celebrations one way or another. It's really, I'm spoiled. I've got the best seat of the house, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
You're very spoiled, Kelly, and I think the going back and forth from Spanish to English, as someone who has translated in a minor league locker room, that is not easy. You think in English, you're trying to talk in Spanish. I have so much respect for you doing that on live TV.
appreciate that.
That's incredible.
Thank
Kelly,
you.
we're going to get you out on this. We're asking all of our guests, who's your World Series champion and how many games?
I'll tell you who I want to win. I want the Blue Jays to win. I want Don Mattingly to have a ring. Am I
There we
right?
go.
Right?
Don-
We got some cheers. We want the Blue Jays. We want
Don-
the Jays, but I think it's going to take them 7.
I'm glad you brought up Don Mattingly, the winningest manager in Marlins history.
That's right.
It's his first appearance in the World Series as a player or manager.
Isn't that incredible? 39 years, I think it is. 39, 36, something like that. Incredible.
It's
Donnie
crazy
was
that
a
he
great
with
guy.
the Yankees for so long and never sniffed the World
Dodgers
Series.
for so long.
Yeah.
But hopefully he gets to beat his former team
Absolutely.
here with
Absolutely.
the Jays.
Karma. Well, thank you, Kelly, so much.
Thanks, guys.
A Miami legend, Kelly Saco. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And our final guest, a man who needs no introduction in South Florida, can probably get into anywhere he wants in this city. If you just say his name, we've probably used his name a couple of times to get in a couple of places. The only World Series champ, I take that back. Juan is a World Series champ. But as a player, we have Jon Jay coming up, South Florida legend.
Thank you, bro.
I was just about to say, Toad gets mad at me whenever I bring more and more Columbus guys up here because
Adelante,
we've had a
adelante,
couple Belen
adelante.
guys. But, I feel more comfortable around the Columbus guys. I know there's a couple Belen guys in the back over there. They don't.
John, we had you on the podcast earlier in the season, and we talked a lot about how you're arguably the most interesting first base coach. Well, you were a first base coach with the Marlins. Different role now at the Cardinals. You are one of the most interesting coaches in all of Major League Baseball because it seems like outside of baseball, you have every hobby. You're into music with your boy Marty in the studio. Your main passion outside of baseball seems to be skateboarding. You had a collab come out this week with La Familia Skateboarding. Tell us about that. How did that happen? You're wearing a Malbon hat. We'll get into that later. But tell us a little bit about your collab and how you got connected with La Familia.
First of all, thanks for having me here. This is awesome to be here in front of everybody, and what you guys are doing here is incredible tonight. So, hats off to you guys. But no, I just always been interested in different things since I was a kid. I skated when I was younger, and I was just always into shoes and different things like that. And then, playing, I got to just meet a bunch of different people. And so the Familia Skate collab, I was in Minnesota, and I got connected with Steve Nestor, who's the owner of Familia Skate Shop. So I got to go skate his indoor park there. Got to hang out. He was awesome. The next day he came to the game with his son. We did batting practice, the whole deal. And then a week later, he was like, "Hey man, I think it'd be really cool if we did a hat for you. We usually do this for like skateboard heads, but we want to bless you with a hat." And then naturally, we had to go with the orange and green.
I mean, it's hard to keep up because you do have so many hobbies. It's incredible. I looked at your Instagram this morning. You were golfing in Boca. You had stuff with your kids down here. It's amazing. And I think for me, I always tell you this, you're a great mentor. You're a great person for folks to look up to here in South Florida because you were the first that player like us that made it to the major leagues. We all looked up to you. And obviously we're here to talk about the World Series. You got the ring on your finger, 2011 World Series champ with the St. Louis Cardinals. John, put us in that locker room right now. They're about to take the field, but What is it like? You're about to play, and you played very early on in your career. You played on a team full of superstars: Albert Pujols, Chris Carpenter, David Freese, Matt Holliday. So many household names. Put us in that locker room. What are the emotions? What are people feeling before they take the field here in Game 1?
Yeah, I think it starts before that, right? I think it starts like 2 days before. Like you clinch, it sets you pop champagne with the team, and then it kind of hits like, man, I'm going to the World Series. And then I think, for sure you don't sleep the night before. I mean, it's impossible. You're just, your nerves are running high. This is everything you've ever dreamed of. And, for me personally, like we said, I was on a team of veteran players. I was 26 years old. I mean, I was like, what's going on right now? I'm playing in the World Series today. And then, friends and family, everyone's just so happy. And then it's a moment that you really get to share with them, like the people that help you get to that point. But then you get in the locker room and, moments before the game, you're just looking around and, it's like, hey, we have a chance to make history. We have a chance to do something that's special for, not only yourself, but for the city you play for your family. So it's one of those things that's surreal, and it's something you dream of, right? As a kid, you're in the backyard and you're like, oh, this is Game 7 of the World Series, and you're on the mound or whatnot. So
I'm still doing that, bro. I still go to my parents' house, the basketball hoop. I'm like, there's Toad, 3, 2. I'm doing the same stuff. We're still imagining that. We play softball in Coconut Grove with some of these guys. We treat every game like it's Game 7 of the World Series.
And I think the coolest part too is you see the national anthem, and they bring everybody out, and just everyone's watching this one game, this one moment, which is it's the best feeling in the world.
You were part of an incredible World Series. It went 7 games. You guys had the epic comeback in Game 6 of the World Series with David Freese. We're kind of seeing something similar with Shohei Ohtani, where he's in this unbelievable zone. Shohei Ohtani and Vladimir Guerrero. Talk to us about your vantage point watching Freese. He's in the zone. He's totally locked in. What do you see from a guy like that in a World Series? Like, every time he comes up to the bat, you expect him to do something special.
Yeah, I mean, watching Freese was incredible. He's a guy, not only were we teammates in the big leagues, but we came up with the minor leagues together. So I got to watch, we had a long nights talking about hitting and talking about defense or little things that, how we're going to get to the big leagues or whatnot. So to watch him personally do that was like, I was just like, wow, this is cool. But you're just in a zone where, you block everything off. Imagine this guy's getting 3 RBIs a night, and imagine your phone after a game, right? Your family, your friends, everyone's texting you, and he's answering and just back to focus. So to see him in that zone was, for me, was like, wow, this is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And looking back in history, it's one of the, better postseason moments, ever.
Do you even say anything to him? Do you just leave him alone?
Keep
let
it going.
him cook?
Keep it going. Cook. So I remember one of the coolest things was when we clinched to go to the World Series, he got the MVP of that series. And I remember starting the MB Freeze chant. Like, we were all waiting back. And as soon as he got the trophy, and I was the first one, I was like, MB Freeze. And then, everybody erupted. So that was one of the cooler moments, just to be able to do that to one of my guys. Yeah.
I mentioned Shohei Ohtani. The Dodgers lineup is unbelievable. They got Ohtani, Betts, Freddie Freeman. You just keep going down the order, and it gets more and more difficult. How do you approach that lineup? You were on a Cardinals team this year that beat them 4 out of 6 games, so you guys figured something out. What do you anticipate the Blue Jays are going to do? Do you pitch to Shohei Ohtani? Do you kind of hold back? I mean, what do you do? What do you do with that guy?
It's tough, right? It's all going to it's a matter of what the situation is. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see that non-traditional, like nobody on, 2 outs, and they walk him. Something like that, right? Where he could maybe hit a home run and you don't like the matchup, but it's going to be interesting. And that's why it's so important the guys in front of him getting on base or whatnot. But their lineup is so deep. I mean, if you don't pitch to Shohei, you got to deal with Mookie. You got to deal with Freddie. You got to deal with Teoscar. So that lineup's just really built from 1 to 9 and the guys off the bench as well.
Jon, you're a well-known great defender. You patrolled the outfield like as well as anybody in the major leagues. On the Cardinals, probably learned a lot from Jim Edmonds. When you're out in the outfield during the World Series, what are you thinking about? Is it dead quiet? Can you hear the chirps? Are you so dialed in that all you're thinking is, I want this ball hit to me?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think something that's changed with that, and I was thinking about the other day, I was actually talking to somebody about was, back then we didn't have the pitch clock, right? So now, you have 8 seconds in between the pitch. So you're in the outfield and you're like locking in right away, where before, I had 25, 30 seconds sometimes just to kind of like wander. But I remember I'd always like think about the pitch, think about what they might be calling next, what the count was. Like I did all that like in 8 seconds, and then I'd always just like, look around, wander a little bit, like a little 8 seconds, and then boom, you're locked back in. And then, that second that pitch is getting thrown, it feels like it's it feels like it's 2 hours for every single pitch because, the ball's getting thrown and you want to make a play. And in the playoffs, like we see, there's towels getting waved everywhere. It's harder to see. you're playing games sometimes at 4 o'clock and there's shadows or the sun's in your eyes. So that little moment in between is something that's always real special.
I'm going to put you in the batter's box. You're facing Shohei Ohtani. What do you do against him? Because, again, I just asked you what do you do against him defensively and from a pitching standpoint. He's also on the mound throwing 100 miles an hour. How do you approach a guy like Ohtani at the plate? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to take him out of his game, maybe make him run around? I know a guy like you with speed, maybe you bunt, make him field the ball, get a little more tired, so maybe it wears on him later in the series.
Well, I think with Shohei, he wants to get ahead. He wants to throw strike one, and then he wants to go to that split finger or that high fastball. So, you got to really just make sure you hit that first one you see. And I think that's the approach against him. And, it depends how he's commanding his split finger, but you got to be aggressive and be ready for that first one.
Tougher ballpark to play in the World Series, Rogers Center or Dodger Stadium?
Ooh, I think Rogers Center, from what we've seen right now with that atmosphere, what's going on there is incredible. And, obviously with a dome, it's enclosed, so it's a lot louder or whatnot. So I'm going to go with Rogers Center right now.
You ever see any funky stuff happening at the hotel in center field in Rogers Center?
No funky stuff, but you definitely, you see the door opening, but I'm sure some stuff's gone down there before.
John, we're going to get you out on this one as we're approaching first pitch here. Who's your World Series champion and how many games?
Man, now you're putting me on the spot big time here. I mean, the Dodgers are just unbelievable, but I like what the Blue Jays have been doing, so I'm going to go Blue Jays in 6.
Wow.
I'm the only one. I'm standing in the paint for the Dodgers, dude. A lot of Toronto fans all of a sudden out of the woodworks. Look, this has been the cool environment for us. Obviously, so many of our family and friends here. John is family to us. Kelly and Abel, we want to thank them as well for coming on and being a fantastic show for us. This is again the pinnacle for us, the World Series, right? This is a culmination of a tremendous baseball season. We're thankful to be a part of it with you guys.
The coolest moment in the brief history of the Bullpen Mafia.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this World Series, just like so much of the baseball season, it's been a resurgence for the sport. We've seen it take off. We've seen attendance go up. We've seen ratings way up. So we're excited. I think South Florida, there's a ton of appetite for baseball down here. We talked about the World Baseball Classic. There's great college baseball here too, high school scene, the Marlins. There's so much sort of bubbling up for us.
Grow the game. That's our theme for tonight. We forgot to mention it earlier. We have exclusive merch for tonight. We have
merch for the event at that table back there on the right side.
Brewing. Proceed of the shirt sales goes to the Marlins Youth Academy to grow the game in South Florida.
We're excited. Again, we thank you guys so much. We thank John, Kelly, Abel. Thank you guys. Thank you to all of our friends and family. Thank you to Tank, to Redefine, to Paul, DJ Packaday. It's been awesome. We're going to be here. We're going to be watching the game. Let's enjoy it. Drink some brews, buy some merch, and support the Marlins Youth Academy. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Grow the game.